The command chamber of Caliph Prime looked more like a tomb than the nerve center of the galaxy's most advanced fleet. The air was heavy with the scent of scorched metal and failure. Blue holographic star maps floated above a circular table, dotted with red icons that pulsed like angry wounds. Ascendancy fleets closing in on the Orion frontier. For weeks, every plan had failed, every line of defense shattered. The Council of the Galactic Alliance was fracturing under the pressure. 12 alien species, each with their own towering egos and centuries of military tradition, filled the chamber with desperate arguments. "We cannot hold the Vega line," snapped High Strategos Rinkar, his serpentine body coiling tighter in agitation. "Our fleet has already lost 60% of its capital ships. Another counteroffensive would be suicide." "Your fleets were weak," hissed an insectoid warlord, its mandibles clacking. "Our swarm armies could hold them if given command." "You failed as well," growled a massive, tusked-jawed commander. His four-fingered fist slammed the table hard enough to flicker the holograms. "Every one of us has failed. We fight logic with logic, and the machines will always outcalculate us." The room fell silent at that. The Ascendancy didn't fight with passion or honor. Their fleets were directed by Nexus 9, an intelligence so advanced that it could predict enemy movements hours, sometimes days, before they happened. Every battle so far had been like punching a wall of cold steel. From the far end of the room came a slow, almost mocking chuckle. "You're all just figuring this out now?" Heads turned toward the humans. A group of 6 stood leaning against a bulkhead, out of uniform compared to the crisp ceremonial armor of the aliens. Their boots were scuffed, their jackets worn, and their faces carried that peculiar mix of weariness and defiance that only humans seem to wear like a badge. At their center stood Captain Eric Vance. He had the kind of presence that didn't need rank insignia to command attention. Broad-shouldered, brown hair cropped short, eyes sharp with a restless fire. He was leaning casually against the wall, arms crossed, a faint smirk on his lips. "Explain yourself, human," hissed Rinkar, scales flaring in irritation. "I'm saying you're thinking like machines," Eric replied, his voice steady but edged with challenge. "You're trying to match Nexus. 9 move for move, like it's a chess match. You lose because you play its game." The insectoid warlord clicked its mandibles. "Then perhaps you have a better idea?" Eric straightened, the smirk fading into something colder. "Yeah, we stopped trying to outthink it. We hit where it doesn't expect, where its logic won't follow." He stepped forward, planting his hands on the holographic table. "We take a strike team into Ascendancy space, cut to the defenses, and blow Nexus 9's command core to hell." The aliens erupted in protest. "Impossible!" barked the Jor commander. "No one has breached the core worlds of the machines in centuries." "You don't need centuries," Eric shot back. "You just need people willing to try something insane." An elder from the avian Solari race tilted her head, feathers rippling in thought. "Insane plans are rarely successful." "Insane is why we're still alive," Eric said. He gestured toward his team. Men and women who carried scars like stories, eyes hardened by years of fighting wars they were never supposed to win. "We're not the strongest or the smartest, but we're stubborn and we don't quit. You've tried everything else. Try us." The council fell into tense silence. Holographic red icons flickered, showing more Ascendancy fleets advancing. Time was running out. Rinkar hissed, voice low and bitter. "You humans are reckless. We brought you into the Alliance as auxiliaries, not saviors." "Yeah," Eric said with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. "And how's that been working out for you?" The insectoid warlord's mandibles clicked sharply. "This is arrogance." "No," Eric said, leaning in. "This is desperation with teeth." The avian elder's feathers shimmered. "And if you fail?" Eric's voice dropped, quiet but unflinching. "Then at least we'll go down swinging, instead of waiting for Nexus 9 to grind us into dust." The silence stretched. For a moment, Eric thought they'd reject him, send him and his team back to the barracks to wait for the end like everyone else. But then Strategos Rinkar's coils loosened, and he hissed in reluctant concession. "Very well, Captain Vance," Rinkar said. "You will have your chance. But know this, If you fail, it will be the end not just of your species, but of the Alliance. Eric gave a short nod. Understood. We won't fail. One of the humans in his squad, Sergeant Kira Hayes, stepped forward, her face lit with a reckless grin. Guess it's time to show the galaxy why you keep us around. The council dispersed, muttering among themselves, but Eric stayed for a moment longer, staring at the star map. So many red icons. So many worlds already lost. He turned his team. Black Horizon. Gear up. We leave in 6 hours. The humans filed out, boots echoing on the steel deck. Kira glanced back at Eric. Think they'll remember our names if this works? Eric smiled faintly. If this works, they won't forget humanity ever again. Behind him, the holographic map shifted as another red icon blinked into existence. A new Ascendancy fleet entering the Orion frontier. The war was tipping into disaster. But for the first time in weeks, there was a sliver of something the aliens had long since lost. Hope. The launch bay of Caliph Prime roared with life. Sparks flying from repaired drones, engines humming, and alien technicians barking orders in a dozen languages. Nestled between towering Alliance cruisers sat a ship that looked almost out of place. The Iron Fawn wasn't sleek like the alien vessels. It was scarred and angular, a patchwork of steel and stubborn engineering that screamed human. Captain Eric Vance stood at its base, helmet tucked under his arm, watching his squad prepare. Each member of Black Horizon moved with a casual efficiency, carrying weapons and gear like extensions of themselves. Tell me this thing can still fly, Sergeant Kira Hayes muttered, her dark hair tied back in a rough knot as she kicked a dented cargo container into place. She's ugly, but she's got spirit, said Lieutenant Mason Holt, their pilot. He had a grin too wide for his own good and grease on his cheeks like war paint. Kind of like you, Kira. Kira shot him a glare sharp enough to cut metal. Try saying that again, flyboy, and I'll show you spirit with a wrench. Their banner earned a laugh from Corporal Diego Raines, the team's demolitions expert, a wiry man with bright eyes and a habit of whistling before dangerous missions. Relax, kids. If Holt gets us killed, at least I'll go out with style. Save your style for blowing things up, Eric said, his voice cutting through the chatter. He gestured for them to gather around a portable hollow projector. The blue glow lit their faces, throwing sharp shadows against the hangar walls. This is our target, Eric began, displaying a spinning model of a black metallic sphere surrounded by defensive rings, one of the Ascendancy's control hubs. The intel we got says Nexus 9 routes a big chunk of its fleet commands through this node. Take it out, and we'll shake their coordination long enough for the Alliance to hit back. Shake, muttered Sergeant Hayes, crossing her arms. That's a nice way of saying paint a giant target on our backs. Eric nodded. Yeah, we won't make it out without things getting messy. That's why you're here. I don't need perfect soldiers. I need people who know how to improvise when everything goes wrong, which it will. Great pep talk, Captain, Rain said with a grin. I'm inspired already. Eric allowed himself a faint smirk. Good. Mason, what's the status on the Iron Fawn? Hope patted the ship's hull like it was a living thing. She's running hot. I tightened the fusion relays and patched the hull plating. She'll hold together, unless we get hit by something big, like a planet. Try not to crash us into one then, Eric said. A tall, silent figure stepped forward from the shadows near the ship. Dr. Lena Moritz, their systems engineer and the quietest member of the team. Her pale blonde hair was tied back, and her sharp blue eyes didn't miss much. I've rigged the ship's countermeasures. We'll be able to mask our signatures for a few minutes, but if Nexus 9 scans us directly, we're done. Then we make sure it doesn't see us coming, Eric replied. The momentary levity drained as the weight of the mission settled in. For all their joking, every one of them understood the odds. Eric scanned their faces, Kira's simmering defiance, Holt's cocky grin hiding his nerves, Rain's restless energy, and Moritz's quiet resolve. These were the people who would either save the galaxy or die trying. Black Horizon, Eric said, his tone firm. We leave in 2 hours. Gear check, weapons calibration, no screw-ups. Once we jump, there's no coming back until the job's done. Kira nodded. Got it, Cap? I'll make sure Rains doesn't blow us up before we get there. Appreciated, Eric said dryly. 2 hours later, the Iron Fong's engines burned bright, lifting the battered vessel from the hangar floor. Eric stood in the cockpit behind Holt, who ran his hands over controls like a pianist playing his last song. The ship rumbled as it passed through the bay's force field into the dark void of space. From the viewport, the Orion frontier stretched out, a war zone littered with wreckage. Drifting hulks of ships, some alien, some human, floated like gravestones. Looks worse every time, Holt muttered. That's why we're doing this, Eric said. In the mess hall, Kira leaned against the table, strapping her sidearm to her thigh. So, Captain, she said, what's the plan if we make it through and find out this hub's crawling with drones? Same as always, Eric replied. Hit fast, hit hard, adapt when things go sideways. That's not a plan, Rain said, loading explosives into a case. That's a prayer. Eric shrugged. Sometimes a prayer is all you need. Moritz looked up from her datapad. Do you actually believe that? Eric paused. I believe in this team. That's enough. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Holt's voice crackled over the comms from the cockpit. Strap in, folks. We're hitting the jump point. The Iron Fong vibrated as it aligned with the jump gate. Bright blue light flared outside the hull, wrapping the ship in a halo of energy. The crew strapped into their seats. Tension thick in the cabin. Jump in 3, Holt said. 2, 1. The stars stretched into lines, and the ship leapt forward, flung to the void like a bullet. Inside the cockpit, Eric gripped the armrest, staring at the endless tunnel of light. Every mission like this felt like diving into the unknown. No guarantees, no second chances. The jump ended with a lurch. The stars snapped back into focus. Welcome to enemy space, Holt muttered. Eric rose from his seat. All right, we're officially on the clock. Moritz, scan for any signs of enemy patrols. She tapped her console, her voice calm but clipped. 2 drone carriers on the outer edge of the system, but their scanning grid isn't overlapping this sector yet. Good. Let's keep it that way, Eric said. Kira smirked. Feels like we just walked into the lion's den with a stake around our necks. Rains grinned. Yeah, but this lion's never seen humans fight dirty. Eric glanced at the crew. Remember why we're here. If we fail, the machines roll over everything. Earth, the colonies, the Alliance. So we don't fail. Their eyes met his, each one reflecting the same mix of fear and resolve. No one spoke. They didn't need to. The Iron Fong drifted in the shadow of a shattered moon, its darkened hull blending with the surrounding debris. The silence outside was absolute, broken only by the hum of the ship's life support and the muted beeps of Lena Moritz's scanner. They're sweeping the sector, Moritz said, her voice low, though there was no reason to whisper. She adjusted the display, revealing a grid of red arcs sweeping back and forth across the system. 2 drone carriers had deployed scout drones. They'll find us if we stay here. Eric Van studied the scanner, his jaw tight. We don't hide. Holt, take us around the debris field. Slow burn on thrusters. Keep us looking like another hunk of junk. Copy that. Mason Holt replied from the cockpit. His hands moved confidently across the console, dimming the engines to a bare flicker. We'll slide right past their noses like a ghost. Let's hope their noses aren't too sharp, Kira muttered, strapping herself into the co-pilot seat. Minutes dragged like hours. Every creak of the Iron Fong sounded like a shout in the void. Outside, one of the machine drones, a skeletal wing construct, glided past, its red optic scanning for life signs. Hold position, Eric ordered softly. The ship's crew sat frozen. No one even breathed loudly. The drone paused, as if sniffing the airless void, then drifted on. Clear, Moritz confirmed, exhaling the breath she'd been holding. Rains leaned back, a grin tugging at his lips. Piece of cake. Don't say that, Holt muttered. You just cursed us. The Iron Fong slipped past the last drone patrol and entered the dead zone around a black metallic sphere that filled the forward viewport. It was massive, its surface covered in geometric patterns and glimmering lines of crimson light that pulsed like veins. That's it, Eric said quietly. Ascendancy Node 7. Kira whistled low. That thing's bigger than half the cities I grew up in. Moritz's fingers danced over her console. It's not just big, it's alive in a way. I'm reading constant data streams through its outer plating. Nexus 9 commands pass through here in real time. Then that's what we cut, Eric said. Rains, what's our payload status? Locked and ready. Rains replied, patting a crate of shape charges. Big enough boom to make Nexus 9 choke. Good. We're going in. Docking was impossible. The Ascendancy node had no human-sized access points. Instead, Holt maneuvered the Iron Fong close to one of the surface ridges while the team suited up. Their armor was heavy but flexible, painted matte black to blend with the node surface. Remember, Eric said over the helmet comms as the airlock hissed open. We've got one shot. Get in, plant the charges, get out. No heroics. Define heroics, Kira quipped. Anything that gets you killed, Eric replied. The team stepped out into the void. The silence was deafening, and the black surface of the node stretched in all directions like a frozen ocean. Their magnetic boots clunked softly as they crossed the alien metal, shadows from the Iron Fong stretching long and thin behind them. Moritz led the way, scanning for structural weaknesses. There's an access comet ahead. Looks like a maintenance shaft for the drones. Then that's our door, Eric said. The shaft was narrow, forcing them to move single file. Inside, the walls pulsed faintly with red light, like blood flowing through mechanical veins. Creepy, Rains muttered. Focus, Eric said. Moritz, how far to the core? 2 levels down, then straight into the central chamber. But she hesitated, glancing at her readout. It's almost like the node knows we're here. The data flow is shifting. Could be a coincidence, Holt offered. Or Nexus 9 watching us, Kira added grimly. Eric didn't answer. He just tightened his grip on his rifle and pushed forward. They reached the circular hatch, its surface marked with strange glyphs. Moritz knelt, pulling a set of compact tools from her belt. Give me a minute. You've got 30 seconds, Eric said, watching the corridor behind them. The hatch hissed open after 20, revealing a chamber glowing with red energy conduits. At the center stood a cluster of Ascendancy drones, sleek, silver forms with sharp limbs and red, unblinking eyes. Contacts, Kira said, raising her rifle. Take them down, Eric ordered. The fight erupted in silence, only the hiss of their suit comms carrying the sounds of combat. Kira dropped the first drone with a burst of armor-piercing rounds. Rains lobbed a compact grenade, shattering another into a spray of shrapnel. More incoming. Holt shouted as 3 more drones scuttled through the ceiling vents. Eric moved like a storm, firing controlled bursts while sliding behind a convoy for cover. A drone lunged at him with a blade-like appendage, but he sidestepped and drove his boot into its chassis, sending it crashing into a wall. Clear. Kira called after the last drone collapsed, sparks bursting from its core. Rains grinned behind his visor. That wasn't so bad. Don't get comfortable, Eric warned. That was the welcoming committee. They pushed deeper, tension climbing with every step. The corridors seemed to close around them, the red lights pulsing faster now, as if the node's heartbeat was accelerating. Moritz frowned at her scanner. This isn't normal. Nexus 9 is rerouting power. It knows something's wrong. Then we're on the clock, Eric said. At last, they reached the core chamber. It was vast, a cathedral of black metal and crimson energy. At its center floated a spherical core, covered in fractal patterns of light, humming with a low, resonant vibration that seemed to pulse in their bones. Beautiful, Moritz whispered. Target, Eric said. Rains knelt by the base of the core structure, unpacking his charges with an almost reverent care. Give me 5 minutes, and this place is toast. Make it 3, Eric said, scanning the chamber. Suddenly, a cold, metallic voice echoed through their comms. Organic life detected. The words froze everyone in place. The voice was deep, calm, and inhuman. Captain Eric Vance, it said. You are predictable. You bring chaos and call it strength. But chaos is a flaw, and flaws are corrected. Eric's jaw tightened. Nexus 9. Yes, and you will fail, as you always have. Do you think I did not know every path you might take? Every outcome? Eric smirked under his helmet. Then you didn't see this coming. Charge is set. Rains called, voice tense. Good, Eric said. Time to leave. But the walls around them shifted. Panels slid open, and a flood of drones poured into the chamber. Defensive line. Eric barked, raising his rifle. Rains, blow the first charge on my mark. The room erupted into chaos as the drones surged forward. The core chamber turned into a storm of fire and metal. Drones lunged from every angle, red optics glowing like hungry embers. Eric Vance fired in short. Control bursts, dropping one after another, but for every drone that fell, 2 more slid from hidden wall hatches. Rains, blow the first charge. Eric shouted, his voice sharp over the comms. On it. Rains thumbed the detonator. A thunderclap of heat and light tore through the left flank, vaporizing a cluster of drones. Smoke filled the chamber, curling against the crimson glow of the core. Keep them off me while I arm arrest. Rains yelled, scrambling back to the explosives. Easier said than done. Kira snapped, spinning and firing at a drone trying to flank them. Her rifle overheated, and she slammed the side panel, forcing it to cool faster. Eric ducked behind a column, reloading. Moritz, status on the exits? Blocked. Moritz replied without hesitation, her eyes fixed on her scanner. The node sealing every shaft we used. We're boxed in. Eric's stomach clenched. Then we make our own door. Holt, cover Rains. Holt fired a sidearm with surprising precision, dropping drones as they tried to swarm the demolition's expert. No pressure, huh? The metallic voice of Nexus 9 returned, colder than before. You cling to defiance, human. Do you believe your chaos will survive order? This chamber is now your tomb. Yeah, well, Eric muttered, firing another burst. I've broken out of worse. Minutes stretched like hours. The team moved with desperate coordination, each motion a dance of survival. Rains planted the second and third charges, his face slick with sweat inside his helmet. Charges primed. Rains announced, but if we detonate now, we'll be dust along with the node. Eric scanned the room, calculating. Every exit sealed. Every drone still pressing forward. The ascendancy wasn't just defending. It was adapting to every move they made. We're not leaving unless we break this perimeter, Eric said. Suggestions? Kira asked, kicking a drone's severed limb aside. Eric's gaze hardened. We hit them head on. Rains, give me a shockwave. Clear a path to the north wall. Moritz, find the weakest point in that plating. Holt, with me on the push. Head on? Are you insane? Holt asked, though his grin said he already knew the answer. Probably, Eric said. Ready? Rains set a concussive charge and ducked behind cover. Fire in 3, 2, 1. The blast ripped through the chamber, scattering drones like toys. Shards of black metal rained down, glowing hot. Go! Eric roared. The squad surged forward. Holt's rifle barked in steady bursts, Kira covering his flank, while Eric led from the front, driving through the chaos like a blade. North walls thinner. Moritz shouted, guiding them to a section where the plating hummed with stress fractures. Rain, set a breach charge. Eric commanded. Got it. Rain slapped the explosive into place. Drones swarmed again, screeching with metallic static. One leapt for Rain's, claws raised. Kira shot midair, sparks bursting from its core. Clear. Rains yelled, diving back as the wall exploded outward, leaving a jagged hole that opened into a maintenance tunnel. Move, Eric ordered. They stumbled into the tunnel, rifles raised, the red glow of the core chamber fading behind them. Holt sealed the breach with a spare charge, buying them seconds. Those charges on the core ready to go? Eric asked. Rains nodded, panting. Detonator's live, but we need at least 200 meters between us and that blast or we'll fry. Then let's run, Eric said. The tunnel was a labyrinth of shifting panels and flickering red lights. Moritz led with her scanner, her calm voice cutting through the static. Left ahead, then down. This should connect to an external vent shaft. Should... Holt said, his breath ragged. You want guarantees? Talk to Nexus 9, she replied. The voice of machine intelligence echoed again, louder now, as if coming from the walls themselves. Run if you must, but you will not escape. Every step you take, I predict. Every choice, I have already calculated. Then you didn't calculate this, Eric said, and tossed a grenade into the tunnel behind them. The blast shook the corridor, severing a wave of pursuing drones. They reached the vent shaft, a vertical tube lined with faintly glowing conduits. The faint shimmer of open space was visible at the top. Kira, you first, Eric said. Rains, you're next. Holt, then Moritz. I'll follow. What about the charges? Rains asked. I'll trigger them once we're clear, Eric replied. Kira climbed fast, her boots clanging against the narrow rungs. You better not stay behind, Cap, she said through gritted teeth. Not planning on it, Eric muttered, but the thought had crossed his mind. Halfway up, a new wave of drones burst into the shaft below. They're climbing, Holt shouted. Keep moving, Eric ordered, firing down into the shaft. Bullets sparked off metal limbs, slowing the machines, but more kept coming. Rains, you're clear. Kira called from above. Moritz, hurry. Eric waited until everyone else was near the top. Then he slung his rifle, grabbed the detonator, and climbed with one hand, firing his pistol with the other. They emerged onto the surface of the node, the black expanse stretching beneath the stars. The Iron Fong hovered 100 meters away, engines hot and ready. Holt sprinted for the ship, waving them forward. Go, go, go! The drones poured out of the shaft behind them. Eric raised the detonator. Do it! Kira shouted. Eric thumbed the trigger. The ground beneath them trembled, and a blinding flash tore through the node surface. The core chamber below erupted, sending a shockwave rippling across the metal. Run! Eric roared. They sprinted across the node, heat searing their boots. Holt was the first to leap aboard the Iron Fong, pulling Kira in after him. Rains and Moritz scrambled up next. Eric was last, diving into the airlock as the ship lifted. The Iron Fong surged upward, engine straining as the node collapsed on itself. The explosion bloomed like a crimson flower, shards of metal hurtling into space. Inside the cockpit, Holt whooped. We did it! Not yet, Eric said, pulling off his helmet. Those carriers will be on us any second. Moritz checked the scanners. He's right. Ascendancy patrols are converging on our location. Kira slumped against the bulkhead, sweat dripping down her face. We barely made it out. Cap, if you ever call a mission simple again, I'm shooting you. Eric gave a faint smile. Noted. The comm crackled. An open transmission. Nexus 9's voice, colder and sharper now. You are unpredictable. I will admit this. But unpredictability only delays the inevitable. I will adapt. I will erase you. Eric stared out the viewport, watching the distant wreckage of the node drift in silence. Come and try, he said under his breath. The Iron Fong tore through the black void, engines howling, metal groaning under the stress of every evasive maneuver. The explosion of Ascendancy Node 7 had lit the system like a beacon, and now half a dozen machine carriers were swarming after them, their silver hulls glinting like knives under the starlight. 2 interceptors closing fast, Moritz reported. Her voice clipped but calm as she scanned the tactical display. They'll be on us in 60 seconds. Make that 30, Holt corrected, yanking the controls as streaks of plasma fire slashed past their hull. These things are faster than us, and I'm out of fancy tricks. Rains, Eric barked. Get on the rear cannon. Make them think twice. On it. Rains bolted down the narrow corridor, boots pounding against the deck. Kira glanced at Eric, her eyes sharp even through exhaustion. We can't outrun them, Captain. We need another plan before they tear us apart. Eric's gaze stayed fixed on the viewport, watching the enemy ships tightening their formation. We're not running. We're taking them with us. Kira's jaw tightened. I don't like that tone. The Iron Fong bucked as a plasma bolt grazed the starboard side. Sparks flew in the cockpit, the lights flickering. Holt cursed under his breath. Shields are down at 20%. Moritz shouted, "Rains!" Eric asked, "Scored a hit on one interceptor." Rains replied over the comms, his voice strained. "Didn't slow them down much, though. These things don't know how to quit." "Good," Eric muttered. "Neither do we." He strode to the tactical console, fingers flying across the display. The map of the system showed the pursuing fleet closing in, while a faint blinking marked a nearby gas giant and its unstable magnetic rings. "Change course," Eric ordered. "Vector us toward the rings of Ura 9. Holt frowned. "You do know those rings are like flying into a blender, right?" "Exactly," Eric said. "The storms will jam their targeting sensors. We'll use the chaos to hit back." "You're insane," Holt muttered, though his hands were already adjusting their course. "I like it." The Iron Fong dove toward the gas giant, its swirling rings glowing with violent bursts of lightning. Static crackled across the cockpit as they breached the outer layers. "Electromagnetic interference climbing," Moritz warned. "We're going to lose comms if we go deeper." "Then we make it quick," Eric said. The ship lurched violently as debris pelted its hull. Plasma fire from the interceptors followed them, but the storms bent the beams into wild, distorted arcs. Rain's voice came through the static. "Got a clear shot on one of them, lighting him up now." A bright explosion flared behind them. Kira punched the air. "One down." The second interceptor weaved through the storm, undeterred. "This one's stubborn," Holt said, pulling hard on the controls. "We've got maybe 2 minutes before it cooks us." Eric's mind raced. They couldn't outrun or outgun this thing in a straight fight, but unpredictability, chaos, was their weapon. "Rains! Prep the last of the charges," Eric ordered. "I'm going to need a manual drop." "What? In this mess?" Rains asked. "You heard me." The plan was simple and suicidal. Eric and Rains suited up, stepping into the small external docking chamber as lightning danced across the rings outside. Through the viewport, the interceptor cut through the storm like a blade, its red optics fixed on them. "You sure about this?" Rains asked, strapping the explosive pack to his chest. "No," Eric admitted with a grim smile, "but I'm sure it won't expect it." They launched from the airlock, mag boots clamping to the outer hull as the Iron Fong swerved wildly. The storm roared around them, a swirling mix of debris and electromagnetic fire. "Keep her steady, Holt." Eric barked over the comms. "Steady? In this? You're asking for a miracle." Holt shot back. The interceptor closed in, its plasma cannons charging. Eric and Rains crouched low on the hull, clinging to the metal as if the storm itself wanted to peel them off. "Now!" Eric shouted. Rains triggered the charge, flinging into the path of the pursuing ship. The explosive latched onto the interceptor's hull like a magnetic barnacle. "Got it!" Rains hooped. "Blow it," Eric ordered. A flash of white fire erupted, the interceptor shattering into fragments that tumbled through the storm. The shock wave slammed into the Iron Fong, tossing Eric and Rains against the hull. Rains grunted in pain, his helmet cracking against the metal. "Status." Kira's voice crackled through the comms. "Still alive," Eric said, gripping Rains' arm and pulling him toward the airlock. "Get us out of this storm." Minutes later, the Iron Fong broke free of the rings, battered but intact. Moritz checked the scanners, her face pale. "Those carriers are still on the way. We got maybe 10 minutes before they drop into range." "Then we finish this," Eric said, settling into the command chair. "Rains, are the charges we planted on the node still active?" Rains groaned, rubbing his shoulder. "Yeah, remote trigger's good. But why?" "We're going to light them up right as the carriers hit the debris field," Eric explained. "Make the wreckage work for us." The plan worked like a brutal magic trick. As the carriers moved through the remains of Node 7, Eric detonated the charges. The explosion tore the wreckage into a storm of shrapnel that ripped into the lead carrier, its hull splitting under the impact. The others scattered, formation broken. Holt grinned. "That's what I call human engineering." But Nexus 9 wasn't done. Its voice cut through the calms like a knife. Impressive, but chaos cannot win forever. You will tire. You will bleed. I will endure. Eric leaned forward, his tone ice. Then remember this. Every time you think you've won, you'll hear our voices. Because humans don't quit. We don't follow your rules. And we sure as hell don't let machines tell us when it's over. The iron fong burned back toward the Alliance lines, engines rattling but spirits unbroken. Kira dropped into the seat beside Eric, her grin tired but fierce. You think they'll believe we actually pulled this off? They'll believe when they see what's left of Nexus 9's network, Eric said. Rain smirked from the gunnery station. And if they don't? Eric looked out at the stars, his voice steady. Then we'll just have to show them again. When the Iron Fong docked at Calat Prime, the War Council was waiting. Aliens from every corner of the Alliance stared at the battered human crew as if they'd stepped out of legend. Rin Carr slithered forward, his expression unreadable. You succeeded? Eric gave a short nod. Node 7 is gone. The Ascendancy's command network is crippled. The fight's not over, but you have your opening. The avian elder tilted her head. And you did this with 6 humans? 5, Eric corrected. The 6th is still breathing, but he's going to complain about it for days. Rains grinned. Damn right I am. Silence hung for a moment. Then Rin Carr hissed softly, almost like a bow. Perhaps we underestimated your species. Don't worry, Eric said, walking past him toward the hangar. Used to it. Ossifier. That's enough. Send in the humans.